where they kind of dive into Ferrari's struggles. Well, triumphs in the beginning, but then quick struggles with some of the strategy. I wish, Lawrence, that one conversation where they kind of screwed Charles Leclerc by not bringing him in to change his tires, where he's kind of pointing in Charles' face. Remember, and that blew up in that point of the season when it happened. And didn't they say afterwards, well, it was a happy conversation or something? It was a friendly conversation. It's like, I've never had a friendly conversation with somebody wagging their finger in my face. But I wish that was a moment where we had the mics on, and maybe they did, and they just decided, you know what, this is too close to home. But I kind of wish we got to see a little bit behind the curtains more so than we did in that Ferrari episode. How do you feel, Lawrence?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think it was very much a PR managed kind of episode, wasn't it? Whereas perhaps Haas give Netflix more freedom to do what they want at the end of it. Because as we mentioned before in the last episode of this podcast, the teams do get some say over what goes out at the end of it, which kind of takes some of away from it being a true documentary and more of a kind of PR exercise. But I think the one thing that came away from that Ferrari episode and Mattia is that he is a very, very nice and calm individual, isn't he? He's really got a certain way of managing, and it was often, well, this is something to learn from the mistakes we're making. But you can also look at that and start to understand why Ferrari maybe felt that he wasn't the right man for the job, because even though he consistently said they had something to learn, and they certainly did from those situations, they never really put those learnings into practice. And as a result, the mistakes kept happening. So there was also in that episode, it was before the race, and they were talking about strategy and how important it would be. And Mattia kind of goes, we will have to bite, and then I'm counting on you. But he says it in this very quiet, monotone voice, and you're like, "Come on, this is not the dressing room kind of like."
It's like it's like he's kind of whispering it, isn't it? He's like he's kind of, he doesn't want the drivers to actually hear that. He's like, "Okay, I've said it, but I don't need them to hear it."
And F1 is different to other sports like that. It's not quite the same as a football dressing room, but still, yeah, you can understand why maybe questions were being asked. Is this guy is clearly a very talented engineer, clearly a very calming influence, and a very good at leading the team in certain directions. But is he the man who's actually going to stand up, or the person who's going to stand up and motivate them in the right way, and then also make the really tough decisions when they need to? Because in that race, in the break, so the red flag break, Red Bull are talking about how, well, Ferrari are going to prioritize Charles, aren't they? They're going to prioritize Charles. Maybe they'll sacrifice Carlos. And then the reality is that Ferrari actually do the opposite. They prioritize Carlos, I think by mistake, in reality, but they still did that. And then at the end of it, Red Bull can't quite believe how lucky they've been. And and that really was the story of so many races this year. And so I think that's the side of Mattia which unfortunately maybe got a bit exposed. And again, I think it helps to cast it in a light now that we know that he's gone. And of course, when he's doing when he's doing all of those interviews, I think he doesn't know that he's going to leave at the end of the year, apart from maybe the very ones at the end of the series. And so, it does cast it in a slightly different light, and maybe a bit of an understanding as to why Ferrari went the way they did with the decision.
Fair.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.